Okay, and call this meeting to order, please. Please stand for the pledge. Supervisor Chiara, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I'm sorry, could we please stand for a moment of silence? Former supervisor from the town of Florida, Howard Osmeyer, passed away. Thank you. Roll call.
Chairman Thayer.
Here.
Supervisor Stagliano.
Here.
Supervisor Creco.
Here.
Supervisor Stark. Supervisor Barone. Supervisor Wheeler. Supervisor Chiara.
Here.
Supervisor DeMezza.
Here.
Supervisor Allen.
Here.
Supervisor Sullivan.
Here.
Supervisor Strebe.
Here.
Supervisor Coddington.
Here.
Supervisor Quackenbush.
Here.
Supervisor Rushkowski.
I'm here.
Oh, I missed you. Supervisor Sweet.
Here.
Okay, the purpose of the meeting is resolution number 266, establishing a public hearing, local law number 1 of 2013. I believe that there's already a sponsor and a co-sponsor of this. That would be Supervisor Stark and Supervisor Coddington. And you have some information in front of you. I think we'll open it up to planning. If you would like to just lead it off and kind of walk us through your different areas that you've discovered.
Okay, I'll try to give you, give everybody a kind of a background of where we're at, how we got here. Thanks, John. And what I've passed out in front of you is a series of maps that show some corrective areas on the map, and it's going to be helpful to have those details in front of you in those maps. My role in working with the Charter Commission was to give them technical support, help them with the minutes, all the various work that they did on that, but it also involved the mapping, and there were a number of scenarios as the Charter Commission did their work on 7 districts, 8 districts, 9 districts, and so on, and various configurations of potential districts. Ultimately, the Charter Commission decided to go with 9 districts, and at that time that their work was finishing up, there was a draft district map, I would call it the August map, that basically was the final draft that the Charter Commission approved and endorsed, and it was moved forward with the referendum for the vote. But as I understand it, the map was not fully a part of the referendum, so now you're looking at consideration of some mapping. What type of map? I think it'd be clear you're going to be staying with the 9 districts. And so the map that was presented or finished up in August needed some polishing, as I could best describe it. That it needed another layer of detailing, and that's where we're at now. And so here we are in December, and you now have a resolution in front of you that puts out the boundary descriptions for each of these proposed districts. And so you have that resolution in front of you with all the language. Over the last period of time, I've gone over every one of these descriptions, the verbal descriptions, the meets and bounds of each district, and checked it for accuracy and to make sure that everything the map matches up with the language. And so also what you have besides these maps, and I'll go over those in a minute, if you flip through some of the pages of the resolution, you'll see that this is a track change document, and there are some strikeouts, some additions, I would characterize them as corrections, minor things, just to make the map, you know, that as you're following the boundaries of these districts, the language does accurately describe these districts, and that's what the resolution does in the corrections. So as you look at the map, I've got hard copies. It's basically the same size that you can see here, and you would be hard-pressed to be able to look at this map from August to December and find out where those changes are and the corrections are. They're just so small. So with that, here's the August map. And again, all these districts were created with the effort to make the populations based on the 2010 census as close as possible to each other. And there's a range of values. Vincent has some more specifics on the range that can be within a 5% tolerance for being close to each other. So here's the August map. There's a December map. And on here, on this map, I've circled where those changes are. And with the map handout that you have, there's an area called Change 1, Change 2, Change 3, and Change 4. And for each of those changes, you'll see an August map and a December map. And it's kind of like, can you see the changes? They're pretty, the coloration will change from one to the other. And only Change 1, when these areas were changed and corrected, only Change 1 had populations included in it, and that was 28, as I understand. All the other changes were shifts to better coincide with municipal boundaries, and for roads, some more logical corrections, and there were no populations in Change 2, 3, or 4. So, and as we look at those, here is Change 1 in August. Wagner's Hollow. You can tell I spent some time in Kentucky. That's near the boundary of the town of St. Johnsville and the town of Palatine. And you can see the circles where the areas that were on the west side of Wagner's Hollow were not included. And now on this map, it's all inclusive on the west side of Wagner's Hollow. The second change, the parcels are highlighted, and these parcels are in the town of, I want to say Canajoharie. They're not in the village. And then on the correction, those 5 parcels were shifted to the west, and so the village of Canajoharie does not include some other municipal properties. The third change, this is from August. There's an area going up Cayudata Creek Road. And then here you can see that it was included, and there's a little triangle. If I can get my mouse to show, here we are, right in here. These 2 parcels were also included in this district to make the road be the boundary. Here is the last change. This is on the east side along the Mohawk River, a small little sliver of land that is actually in the city of Amsterdam. And then when you look at the corrected map, that area now is in yellow. And so all of the city of Amsterdam and that part of the city is included in that particular district. And that's what I have to show you. And I can answer any questions you have about the mapping, but I know Vincent had some more details talk about the mapping, and I'll let him go from there.
Well, before Vincent comes up, does anybody have any questions they have of Doug? Are you using PowerPoint as well?
I'm going to use this computer, it's not PowerPoint technically.
What are you going to present, Vincent?
Chairman Thayer, I'm going to speak generally about the process we use to map, and then talk a little bit about the maps and sort of why the commission thought that they were good. I believe that is what Supervisor Coggins asked me to.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Good job. Good job.
Doug, now you approved of those changes, correct?
If that's what I could do, I concur with the...
Coming out of the planning board, you concur with the changes that were made?
As far as being corrected to coincide with the maps, jiving with the narrative in the resolution, I concur with it. Yeah.
So you would say they accurately reflect the maps?
Yes.
I think some people were worried that there was going to be more population that shifted. And the net effect looks like it's 28 people.
Yeah, that was the only shift of people that
And that was housekeeping.
we came up with.
I think we could just move this forward, can't we? Yeah. Without even going through any more change. I agree. Any more discussion about it?
If that's the wish of the board.
Yeah.
How could you go through this and not want to know how the maps got here?
We know how it got here, through the census blocks.
I'm certainly happy not to present it.
You don't know how it got here?
Okay.
I attended all the meetings, Tom.
Well, I
so
know how
they
I got
there.
it because I listened to all the rhetoric over the meetings.
Good thing you said rhetoric.
It's up to you.
Give us the Reader's Digest version.
Condensed.
Very
This is the
condensed.
Reader's Digest version.
The Board of Supervisors has to adopt this map. I can't believe you don't want to know how it got there.
We know how it got there.
You don't know how it got. You don't know how it got
Go
there.
ahead, start.
Thanks. So thank you for having me. I'm here with Chairman Swanger. He, of course, chaired the commission. I'm going to try and talk a little bit about why we did what we did. And I will say, I'm not going to speak for the commission, but I can speak to the commission. There were eight other members, and they can speak for themselves just fine. So when you start mapping, you don't just start by pulling out a map and taking a pen to a page. The first thing you're trying to do is come up with principles that will help you map. Like, you think, hey, what would an ideal map look like? And I'll give you the Reader Digest version. There's a few bases, principles that you're going to want to follow. The first is you want to comply with the one person, one vote principle. That's constitutionally required. And you have about a 5% leeway either way. Two, you're trying to keep communities of interest together. In our case, that specifically meant not splitting villages, which we thought would be a really bad idea. And to the extent that we could, try to keep towns together along existing lines. And there was, of course, the rural versus urban distinction, right? The sort of complexion of the area. There's a lot of different things that go into what a community of interest is. Three, you want the districts to be compact. Specifically, we were most concerned with them being drivable, right? If it takes you an hour and a half to get across a district, that's not a very good district. Fourth, they need to be contiguous, and there's a legal reason for that. So you can't cross the river where there isn't a bridge. In fact, it would have been really easy to do these maps if you guys would just put a bridge between Route and Mohawk, but I digress. Fourth, you're trying to follow the existing lines. I kind of already touched on that. And then fifth, you're trying to balance, right? When you do need to put more than one community of interest together, you're looking for a balance so that at least it's plausible that somebody from anywhere in the district could get elected, right? You're not trying to disenfranchise people. All right. Now, the first thing we have to note is it's impossible to keep all the towns together when you go with 9 districts, which is originally why the commission looked at 8, but we got a lot of pushback from the public on that. So now you've realized that you need 9 districts. So what do? Well, you can look to a lot of different existing lines, city and town lines, school district lines, roads, especially the major roads, fire districts, census block group data, because that's where your demographic data is, existing election districts. If somebody's voted with the same person over there for 20 years, you kind of want to keep that together. And then you're respecting natural boundaries like the rivers, the creeks, and other topographical features. So When you start off, you have the census block groups. And here they are. There's 2,700 census block groups, which is a little bit daunting. Which is why you need all these other lines that already exist in order to make any sense of it. And here are some of those. Well, let's skip that. So this is the census block groups indicating the number of people who live in every block. You can see that varies rather widely. And there's a density issue. This is the population density for the county. Those light areas, absolutely nobody lives in. The darker areas, more people do. And this is actually the number of people in each area, regardless of density, right? So you can see there's really rural regions, and it was hard to balance them. And that's why some of the districts may not look exactly like you imagine them, but you can't just grab another town, because if you want to grab Root, you're not getting that many people. Because the village of Canajoharie is 500 more people than the entire town of Root.
We like cows for kids.
So the first districts, your lines you're looking at are the existing municipality and village lines. You're also going to look at the school district lines, which I've overlaid there. Roads, which I've overlaid there. It was getting too much, so I overlaid the river and creeks here. These are fire districts. They kind of give you an idea of what areas are together as a community of interest to some extent. The yellow lines are census blocks, block groups, where you can get demographic information. The green lines are those existing election districts I mentioned. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the districts. And I want to discuss a couple of the key features in each district of why I kind of think that they're pretty good and comply with these principles we've been talking about. So the first district is here, the green one. I didn't choose the same colors that Doug did. I apologize about that. So the first thing you'll notice is that it keeps the town of St. Johnsville and the village of St. Johnsville together. That's a very discernible community of interest, and it would have been really hard to split that apart without sort of disenfranchising people and making it very difficult for anybody in that area to get elected. We've combined it with the rural parts of Minden, that is the parts that are outside Fort Plain, and actually more people live in Fort Plain than the rest of Minden combined, and some rural parts of Canajoharie. The complexion of those two areas is pretty similar. We needed a few more people to make those numbers work, so you can see it creeps over into Palatine to Wagner's Hollow Road. It's not quite the same as, but it was inspired by the line for the St. Johnsville School District. All right. And what we like about this, it has a good balance. The areas north of the river and the areas south of the river each comprise about half the population. You can see the population differential there. Huge area south of the river, not that much north. But it's about half and half, which is a good balance. District 2 keeps Fort Plain and Nelliston together. That's a really distinct community of interest, we thought. They're tied together by a bridge, a common business climate, a common school district, the Fort Plain School District, a common fire district, the Fort Plain Fire District. So we thought that was a good match if you needed to do it. And then the more rural parts of Palatine, you see not including Palatine Bridge, and some rural parts of Mohawk are tied together as well. We had census block group data there that indicated that they're actually quite similar. And you got two nice backbones. You've got Stone Arabia Road and Hickory Hill Road that sort of tie those districts together, which is nice. District 3, oh no, I'm sorry, I zoomed in. I just wanted to note something here, because it kind of seems scary because you're crossing 4 town lines, right? Fort Plain is one of 2 villages in the entire state that crosses a town line. So we included the entire village of Fort Plain here. So there's 6 people, I think, in those 4 districts, or 4 block groups that live there, but just want to make note of that. District 3, it's nice because it keeps Canajoharie and Palatine Bridge together. Once again, they have a bridge, a common business interest. The Canajoharie Fire Department does both of them, and the Canajoharie School District covers both of them. The remaining areas of Canajoharie and Route are also in that school district, with the exception of the upper right-hand corner of Route, which I think is called Randall.
That's found at Fulton.
Right, that's in Fond du Foot, but it's the Randall area up there. And the entire district is kind of held together by the backbone of 5S, which makes it not too difficult to get around. It also keeps Route together, which we were really happy to do, because a lot of the other districts that we came up with split Route a lot of different ways, and you really don't want to split it into 3 areas. You don't want a Randall district, a Sprakers district, and a Likers district. That just doesn't make sense. The other thing I want to note here is a line that kind of scares some people, but I think is one of our better lines, which is here, the Canajoharie Creek line. We had to cut Canajoharie in half, and if you're going to do it someplace, that's the place to do it. Because even if you cut down a road, you still have that situation where half the people on one side are in District 1 and half the people on the other side are in District 2. Not so with the creek. Nobody lives in the creek. So it's a really very definitive line and convenient for that purpose. District 4 is a north-south district, which is something we were trying to do earlier on, but more or less abandoned because there's no bridge between Route and Palatine or Mohawk. This district looks a little big, but it's held together by the backbone of 30A, so you can get anywhere in the district actually pretty quickly. It also keeps together Fonda and Fultonville, which makes a lot of sense. And then the entire district, save for the a little bit at the very bottom of Charleston, is in the Fonda Fultonville School District. At the bottom there's like Waynesburg and Schoharie actually creep in. The non-Fonda parts of Mohawk, we checked, are actually pretty demographically similar to the Fonda parts of Mohawk. And then there's a good balance because the Fonda Fultonville Mohawk area and the rest of Glen and Charleston are about the same population, so once again pretty evenly split there, which is nice. District 5 is an interesting district because it actually kind of combines 3 areas but really dissolves into 2. The first thing that we liked was really nice, which you can't do if you have just weighted voting, is you get to keep Tribes Hill together. 80% of it is in Mohawk, 20% of it's in the town of Amsterdam, but it's a distinct community of interest and it makes sense to keep it together. And then we were able to keep together the sort of greater Fort Johnson area. That goes all the way to Route 30, which if you have to cut the town of Amsterdam up, and you do, is probably the best place to cut it up because very few people actually live there. So once again, it's almost like a creek in that regard. And then we were able to keep Tribes Hill and Fort Hunter together, which is nice because they're very similar and they kind of share an area and a bridge. And you have sort of 2 backbones for this area, which makes sense since there's kind of 2 areas in it. You have 5S, which is tied together with 30 South by Fort Hunter Road and the bridge. Once again, pretty good balance here. The stuff north of the river is pretty well balanced with the stuff south of the river, and actually if you add the 100 people in Fort Hunter in to the north part, right, because they kind of probably are have more in common with Tribes Hill than people on like Bull's Head Road, it's actually almost perfect. We had to steal a few people from the south side of Amsterdam, 40 people from south of 5S, basically where the recorder is, and then I think 97 people from the windswept drives. That was to make the numbers work. We didn't feel too bad about that though, because the windswept drives and the rest of Queen Anne Road, which is right next to it, are very similar in complexion and again in demographics, affluence, things like that. And it's just a close-up. Close-up there, you can see the 97, I think it is, 94. Not good with math. I went to Amsterdam High School. Okay, so that brings us to districts. Oh, that brings us to the city districts, and specifically to District 6. You can see District 6 isn't too complicated. It was nice to keep the south side together because the other option was throwing it in with the town of Florida, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And then we were able to give it most of the Guy Park Avenue area, and they're very similar in their demographics and complexion. Southsiders probably don't think so, but it's true. District 7, which is the blue one to the right, 5715 in my nomenclature, combines the Reed Hill, Milton Avenue, and Upper Church Street areas of the 4th Ward with the Little Hollywood, Sanford Avenue, and Lower Clisby areas, neighborhoods of the 2nd Ward. Again, they have some similarities there. It was sort of a natural pairing. District 8, which is sort of purplish, I should have done more contrast there, kind of gives you whatever's left, right? You use Locust Avenue as a dividing line, which is a good dividing line, especially since there's a park there, so very few people actually live in that part of Locust Avenue. And then everything west, going a little bit into the town of Amsterdam, and I think a little bit up into the town of Amsterdam to Golf Course Road, just to make it even, and Steadwell, just to make it nice and square. Okay, and that brings you to the last district, which is right there, District 9. It's the residual of everything left, and it kind of combines 3 areas again, 3 distinct neighborhoods. The Upper Rockton area, the sort of Upper Locust area, Crescent Francis, of the city of Amsterdam, the top part of what's currently the 1st Ward, down to Van Dyke, which is a pretty major street, so it seemed like a good place to lob it off. And then up with Country Ridge South and North, which are very similar to like the Coolidge and Francisco Ramsey areas. Actually, the idea to take parts of the 1st Ward came from Joe Emanuel. He was at one of our public hearings, and I asked him, hey, would that work? And he said, yeah, they wouldn't mind that. So that's why we did that. And then the other 2 areas are Hageman and Cranesville, which is basically everything in the town of Amsterdam south of 67. Again, very good balance between the 3 of them. Obviously, the town of Amsterdam has the most of those, the voters, which makes sense. And that's basically it. I guess my final summation, I hope I helped anybody who had any curiosity about this, is we went through literally dozens of maps, and the drafters went through more that never even got to the commission because they looked and said, these are awful. And this was the best one, we felt. I think unanimously, we all approved it in the end. And we kind of agreed that you could go on for 6 months and not come up with it. You might come up with a different map, but not really a better map. We spent a lot of time, it was frustrating looking for that perfect map that you'd look at and say, that's it, why didn't I think of it before? And we basically concluded it doesn't exist. Mapping's hard, there's a lot of variables, as you can see, a lot of different lines that you're trying to take into consideration, and it's really a balancing act, and I'm certainly proud of the work the commission did, and I hope you'll consider the maps. Do you have anything to add, Justin?
I think you've given them lots of detail.
Sorry.
Did a good job. Excellent job.
Then, at the maps that you considered, there was a map, I believe, that Doug had shared with me from May 29th.
That's like 8 months ago. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, 8 months ago, but it was a map that for some reason wasn't, didn't end up in the pool of things. And I don't know if you have that map or if you have it available to pull up.
Is that the one?
Well, this is something that Brian had, but this very similar to it.
Right.
This was out.
Yes, that one.
Is it 9 districts?
And that's the one with 9 districts from the 29th. That kind of uses the river.
Yeah, it's a non-contiguous district. I believe that's the reason we rejected it. It cuts across from Route to this part of Palatine. No, that's Mohawk.
Yeah,
But there's no bridge there.
What is it?
There's no bridge. It's a non-contiguous district. I don't want to give a considered legal opinion. You have an attorney. But the considered legal opinion I gave to the commission is that is not legal. And whether or not that's fully established in the law right now, and I think it's pretty clear, and that's why nobody tries it anymore. The next time somebody tries it, you're going to have your districts drawn by a judge.
I guess my point is, though, if you could do it, if there was a way to do it, or Brian, you'd come up with a suggestion, if you could, because of the community interest you always refer to, some of us think that would be actually more of a community of interest because you're keeping things more whole, we believe, some of us. And for instance, St. Johnsville and Palatine could almost remain within those townships. Minden, and I'm looking at the west here, Minden can stay on the side of the river with the village of Fort Plain, and Nelliston isn't a fire district, and there is no Fort Plain Fire District. So there is no community of interest there, they just contract with the village of Fort Plain. But you could, in moving it westward, it also, and I can let Brian speak on it more, we're just wondering why that wouldn't work. And if there's a good answer, then that just rests it, you know what I mean? I just need to hear what that is besides one bridge, because we've crossed a bunch of bridges back, you know what I mean? If you're really trying to keep something, and I'll give you an example, I don't believe that the election board had too much consideration in this up till now, and maybe this is an easy question, and I've been asking it. I live in the village of Fort Plain, which is, by this map that we just looked at, election district 3. I vote in the town of Minden building, which is in 1. So therefore, I'm going to vote for supervisor out in the town of Minden, yet have to come back in the village of Fort Plain in District 2 to vote for legislator unless there's a possibility of drawing up a ballot, special ballot, which I think I'm hearing now we can. Not criticizing anybody, I'm just saying, shouldn't we as a board also be looking at trying to minimize, by working with the Board of Election in getting their suggestions, those impacts, if possible, and maybe it's not. And that's the reason that I've been the one saying, don't move forward with a public hearing and doing this, because there's so many challenges out there. It's not gerrymandering or whatever, call it what you want. I'm calling it trying to keep people consistent with what they've been doing in regards to voting. And you know what, maybe it's not possible, but don't we at least have to get the consideration of the Board of Elections, which I think we need to now. I've been told about legislation that's in the works that would allow districts to be made up of 2,000 people instead of whatever it is now, which really would eliminate election districts and help us. I don't know. But I'm thinking about the confusion of if I have to vote in 2 spots, which I'm thinking I don't have to now, because there'll be a ballot made. I'm thinking of those election inspectors that now have to have personalized ballots that they're handing out for, and maybe I just don't understand it. But because I don't, I think that's why we need to have a discussion and not just say this is the map we're with, because there might be something that fits better in those, within those lines. And if there isn't, there isn't.
Okay, I'll try to do my best. The first part, or maybe it was the second part, but I'll take it first, about the administrative difficulty for the Board of Elections. I can't speak to that. I'm not the Board of Election. I won't presume to speak for them, especially when they're sitting right there. So you could ask them about that. I will note, however, that there are 57 non-New York City counties, and 40 of them have legislative districts, and 40 of them seem to get along just fine. So I imagine those burdens can probably be overcome in some way or another. That's
my point is if there's a way to do that, I'm agreeing with you here.
Sure.
If there's a way to do that that has the most minimal impact, and maybe they're going to say that what's presented tonight is that, then I'm good with it.
And Supervisor Administrator was clearly the right to do that. The second one is kind of asking me to give my opinion on a map that we didn't consider. Like I say, I can tell you why I didn't vote for that, because it's illegal. And I wasn't in the business of getting the county sued. You have your own attorney, however. You can ask for a legal opinion from him. There were other things about it that I didn't like. I'm not going to speak for the commission on that. I think the commission's fucked. We adopted these maps. The vote was 9-0, and that's I'd say our strong recommendation is to you that this was our best efforts after 3 months of work.
Tom. I got Butch first and then Tom.
All right, my question is somewhat like Todd's. What's going to happen in the city of Amsterdam when they got to vote for 5 aldermen and 3 legislators? Is it to you, or is it to Terry?
I would ask Terry. I can answer it, but I'd ask Terry.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Well, go ahead, whoever can give me an answer. I'd like that answer.
What happens in the city is if you split the wards
They are.
with the legislative districts,
They are.
the way they're mapped out, we will redistrict. After you guys decide on what you want to do as board of supervisors, where you want those boundaries, then we will redistrict every town and the city of Amsterdam. Each district, though, we have guidelines in election law 4-100 that says each election district has to be wholly in a town and a legislative district. So in the city of Amsterdam, if the ward is split, now we have to try and figure out it's Ward 1, District 1A, and 1B over here on the other legislative district. So we're having to create extra ballots for those voters in that ward because one part of them are in a different legislative district, but they're in a different election district as well. So in the city, you've got, and plus, by the way, you've got 5 legislators that you'll be voting on. Fort Plain is another issue. I was watching that tonight. Fort Plain, when you cut off that little bit of section over here that's actually the town Kansas area, we have to keep that election district inside a town, inside a legislative district. So that little bit of section there, which is probably 5 voters, is its own election, only 5 voters, is its own election district, just for those people. So you might consider those boundaries as maybe either putting the village of Fort Plain all in one legislative district, or cutting out one little section and putting it in a different legislative district in the village, because it's in a different town. So yeah, we have a problem after you all make your decision as to where we're going to make the election
You need
district.
your input, is what I'm saying.
Right,
I
well.
think the input needs to.
Keep going, you still have the floor.
Okay. My recommendation is that since there is a conflict, or I'm saying maybe a conflict, or there's still work to be done between this districting for the legislative body for the county and the legislative body, and I'm going to speak for the city, and it rolls over to the towns also. That I think that
Can you turn that off?
I think that people should get together, and you and the commission, or Doug, or whoever, should get together before we vote on this thing. I mean, this is, to me, we're going to vote on it, and we're going to come up, and you may have an awful lot of problems doing this thing. So your input right now is saying that 5 people have their own district. Isn't that a little stupid? Okay, excuse my language, but I've got to be very frank. I'm saying that you should get together with Doug and the commission to figure this thing out before we go and vote on this. And then you guys come back and say, look, it's got to be amended again. I mean, we got time. Why are we doing this so quickly? I'm saying you get together with them, and I'm going to recommend that we table this thing until you guys get together. Thank you, Chair.
I've got Tom DeMezza next, and then Brian Sweet.
Well, again, I'm not in favor of making any changes, except for the ones that were looked at by the planning board and have come up tonight. That's the only changes that are allowed, as far as I'm concerned. Again, the people have voted on this map.
Well, they did.
They saw it in the towns. The town of Charleston had it on their bulletin board as the people walked in. They knew what they were voting on. The town of Root had it on their bulletin board, and they knew what they were voting on. And there was others that had it on their bulletin boards. And this was publicized in the newspapers. The map that was, the original map was publicized in the newspapers. So the people saw what they were going to be voting on, how legislative districts were going to be. The only concern I have is that you have virtually 5 people can be elected from the city of Amsterdam and can have the majority of the legislature, can run the whole county. 5 individuals can be elected from, one from the town of Amsterdam that would live in the city of Amsterdam, up in the Coolidge area and Van Dyke Avenue area, then 5, 6, 7, and 8, and the 5th district would be from Windswept Drive or Broadway. So that virtually 5 people in the city of Amsterdam could be elected and run the whole county. And they all could be from the city of Amsterdam, every one of them. So that's the only concern I have, but the people, as far as I'm concerned, they voted on a map that they saw publicized in the paper. And that's that map right there.
I'm Tom.
I'm done.
Brian?
Well, I've spoken to quite a few people since the charter passed, and I want to, give thanks to the Charter Commission because you guys did a lot of work, and from looking at these maps, I know what needs to be do. But through talking with people in my town, they said, "Well, so what's going to happen now? Who's going to be my legislator?" I said, "Well, it kind of depends on where you live. There could be one of 3 legislators." So they're kind of confused, and they don't know exactly. I mean, you can look at the lines and see where you are. But going back to the second point that Vince made of keeping the communities together, if you look at this map, when you drag the village of Fort Plain into District 2, and you drag the village of Palatine Bridge into District 3, to me that's not keeping communities together. Even though there's a bridge, even though there's a common school district, if you know those areas, there's not a lot of community between the two, just if you know the areas. I also handed out a little bit of a worksheet here that kind of gives you an idea of what townships have, how many legislators they have. If you take the first map that was drawn by the commission, it's anywhere from 1 to 3. And the reason, like I said, the reason that I sat down one night and I just kind of drew some lines in this map, and it's by no means perfect or concise in numbers. I tried to have Doug do a little bit, but he was very busy and just didn't have enough time to do it. But it kind of brings it, with that map, it kind of brings it between 2 and 1, which is, to me, for a town supervisor now to have to deal with 3 legislators, that's going to be kind of difficult. So those are my points, and like I said, it's not gerrymandering. To me, I just felt that the river could have been used better by keeping north and south and the actual villages that are in the townships within the townships. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Got Tom Quackenbush next.
We can all night long disagree and agree, but the one thing we have to understand is that people did not vote on a map. It was very clear that the commission was, the Charter Commission was given a job to do. They did a good job at it. Nobody's arguing that point. It's this body's responsibility to come up with that map. They needed to come up with the amount of districts, and they needed a way to do that, so they developed maps as a tool to help them do that. The people in this county did not vote on that. They voted on the number 9 legislative districts. We would be irresponsible. It would be irresponsible of this board to say there was something pinned up in the room, vote on it. We have to make sure that we unturn every stone, not disenfranchise people, keep those community interests together, using the professionalism that these people brought to us. We do need to use that. But we also need to use the professionalism from the Board of Elections to have the least impact. But we can't continue to say and have people think that they voted on a map. There was no map in my town, any map. There was maps published, sure there was, but that doesn't mean all 8 of them that you worked on were it. It doesn't make sense to keep saying that. We did not vote on a map. We did not instruct to our vote to ask the commission to form a charter to produce a map for us. We asked them to tell us what would be the best route, how many districts, and they did that. They did a good job of it. Commend them for it. It's our job to build this map using whatever tools we have available. And we cannot take the Board of Elections and shove them behind the tree and just say, you don't exist. It's just not the right thing to do. To vote on a map that would have 6 people in its own legislative districts district just does not make sense to me. If there's a way to change it, we need the input from these folks. We have not a lot of time, but we have time. I agree with Butch. Supervisor Grigo, you're absolutely right. You know, whether it's the commission or the Board of Supervisors with the commission, or members of the Board of Supervisors with the commission, and the Board of Elections, and anybody else that we need to get that input from. That's really where we need to go with this. And I don't think holding off a month, because I think you could work fairly fast to figure out where the biggest problems are, would be a big deal. And if it ends up being this map, fine.
Set Tom?
Yeah.
Got Mike Chiara, then look at Larry Coddington.
Just a couple of questions on the Board of Elections. What is your timeline? For instance, you have to send out cards or whatever you're going to send out to everybody and tell them X or Y. And you have to get this together. What else do you need to do, and what is your last particular date when you get this done in time when people have to pick up petitions, or even before that, to know where they're going to be? What is your schedule?
Okay. Whenever you decide on what you do, then we would immediately go into effect to try to set up the election districts for within each one of those towns and the legislative districts. Petitions start getting signed in June, unless our state legislators pass a bill that's out there to change the primary election to the end of June, which at that point means that petitions come out in March. So otherwise, I mean, basically, that's what our timeline is.
But conceivably, with all the voters in Montgomery County, you're going to need time to formulate, et cetera. Are you going to be able to do that like in 5 hours, or I mean, what is your? How much time do you need?
I don't know. Never done this before.
Well, you must have a window.
Yeah, we would.
Based on how much time anybody would need, what everybody's talking to tonight, we're hitting January. And people probably want to know, there's all kinds of rumors out, who's running, who's not running. People are going to know basically where they are. Now, if they're in the middle of something, they basically know. But if there's going to be some tweaking or whatever, maybe somebody would want to know that. I personally, except for what was handed by Mr. Stark, I think he did an excellent job. I think the maps should stay the way they are. That's my own personal opinion. I might be in the minority, probably am. That's what I feel. But I want to be specific to you, that you're not going to be left with 3 days to get everything done. So everybody's going to know what is the actual final due date that somebody in this chamber should have everything set up to do.
Well, so you give us a month to try and get it ready, all right? And let's say that they do move, you know, I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of months that they're actually going to move the primary. They've known it for 2 years. Okay. But you need to keep that in mind. So if we have the month of February to get ready, so petitions come out in March, you know, there's you know what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take us to do this. I don't know how much time sitting with Doug, you know, with us sitting there and trying to determine, because it's based on the active voters to set up these districts. So larger areas, obviously larger geographical areas, will be easy to do. You know, when you get into the city, and if the wards are divided, then it's going to probably take a little bit more work.
Set Supervisor Chair?
For now.
I've got Supervisor Coddington next.
Well, first of all, we're talking about legislators where you're representing part here or part there. A county legislator, that's what he is. He's a county legislator. He represents the entire county. He doesn't represent like 5 people here or 9 people here. He represents the entire county. He's supposed to vote as a county's legislator. That's what his job is. Whatever his district is, that's where he's from. But he votes as a county legislator on county issues with county solutions. And secondly, between today and the public hearing, there's 42 days going to elapse there. Am I correct? 42 days. Today is the 11th. That's 20 days left in December, 22 days left in January. Figure there's over 40 days left. There's lots of, it should seem like there's lots of time here to sit down with the Board of Elections and iron some of this out. And thirdly, you're only voting on a public hearing tonight. And at that public hearing, if you have 25 people come in here and they're dissatisfied with these districts, you do just like you do everything else. If we're going to vote on the budget here on the 18th, I believe, something like we're having a public hearing. If we get a room full of people come in and they want $50,000 put into something, we consider that. You can amend that budget and you put the $50,000 in it, or you don't. That's a decision you make. Well, if people come to a public hearing, they don't like those districts and they want changes made, you can amend it and make those changes. But I think that's, like I say, all you're voting here for tonight is to hold a public hearing. You're not guaranteeing those districts even by voting to have that public hearing. Because after that public hearing, like I say, if no one comes and speaks, if somebody comes here and, like I say, has got a good idea, fine, listen to them, make some changes. But myself personally, I sat down, I know what's involved here when doing these districts. I sat down for probably on and off when I get time when my mind was halfway working. I sat down and I tried to come up with legislative districts. The 8 districts is the easiest one to do. I think we all agreed, the commission agreed at 8, but they held the public hearings and people wanted more districts. So I think the commission responded to the public. That's what they've done. That's what you should do. You respond to the public. So anyway, but like I say, the 8 districts, the easiest one to do, and I sat there for, I don't know, months, going over maps and going over this and going over populations and going over everything you could think of to come up with those districts. And then a couple of those districts had legislators at large, where you elect two legislators from one district, and they could both live on the same street. So I think that there's a lot of legalities involved there. As I think Vince spoke about, they have to be contiguous as a rule. They have to be connected. There's all kinds of legal things that have to be involved. You just can't sit down and say, well, there's 47 people there and 4,800, they'll just put them there. You have to follow the law, and I think, like I say, I've got stacks of stuff on that high of laws that you have to follow, and I think Doug would agree with me, any attorney, that there are, wherever you do anything, there's certain laws you follow, and that's how this country operates. We operate under a rule of law. And when you sit down and start doing this stuff, you have to follow these laws. And myself personally, and I agree with Tom 100%, I think whether people looked at that map, I don't care if 7 people looked at that map or 17,000 looked at that map. That map was out there, it was on the internet, and that was in the papers. If anybody reads the paper, goes on the internet, checks out. I know our town was posted right on the wall. They were available. Anybody can want a map, I'd be more than glad to give them one. They were available to people. And Tom's exactly right there. I agree with him 100%. Myself, I would vote to go right on with the map that the commission come up with and work with the Board of Elections. That may be a problem, like I think Terrence was speaking about the 5 people. Maybe that could be fixed. If that's going to cause a problem, that's what I think you just got to sit down with the Board of Elections, maybe make a little bit of change there. But anyway, that's my opinion, and that's all I've got to say.
Okay, I've got Supervisor Demezet and Supervisor Sweet.
This will be the last thing I'll probably say, but Doug, are you pleased with the way this map is? And do you feel that this is the best possible scenario that you could have for 9 districts?
Operating under the things and the principles that Vincent talked about, yes. But I've had discussions with Terry. Terry has come up, we're right floors apart, and we haven't had discussions with that. So, as a planner, I like to be comprehensive in looking at things, and that wasn't done. And if there's time, I think that there could be some.
But it's not going to be any major overhauling.
I
There's
don't
going to be
know,
some.
but I think it's a very close to being a solid map, but without having the input of the Board of Elections, I think it could be another step better, and I think there's time to do that.
All right, and then Vince, are you happy with what's been done here?
Supervisor, of course, yes, I am.
Dusty, you were the president of the commission, chairman of the commission. What do you feel about this?
I think, Tom, we've worked on that map and versions of that map a lot to try and come up with the best map that we could come up with. The district that you had in question, Tom, our understanding is that you can't have a district that you can't get from one end to the other. And let me try and phrase it. You have to be able to stay in the district and traverse all the boundaries. The district that's in question, you can't, because there's no bridge across the river. You have to leave the district to come back into the district. That's our understanding, which is why we didn't have the map that you had.
May 29th map.
Correct.
Right, and I'm kind of referring to something else that Brian came up with that we might be able to do that with.
That was our understanding. I also would say that because we worked so hard on the map, and because the public asked us during hearings about, well, where will my district be if we have this charter? While I recognize this board's authority over the districts, I do believe the public believes the map will be certainly a lot like what was presented. If there has to be, it doesn't make sense to have a district with 5 people. If you got to tweak it, you know, you got to tweak it for those little pieces. But I think by and large, the public looked at that map and that influenced their decision. And I believe that as a commissioner, and I would encourage us to respect that.
Thank you for your input. I have nothing further.
Supervisor Sweet.
Isn't the County of Otsego going through the process right now?
Oneida.
Oneida? And what are they doing? What are they, what's the process? Does anyone know?
They currently have a legislature, and I believe they're going from 29 districts down to 23. And they have charged a committee from the Board of Legislature, from the legislature to create the new lines.
Is that something we should consider?
You could consider it.
Question? Sure.
Tom Quackenbush.
Larry talked about following the law and the importance of following the law, and I agree with it. That also includes the election law. And with no input whatsoever to date from those folks, how do you just move forward? And once we vote on it, and that map is in place, let's say that we had a public hearing, we voted on it tonight, I want to present to the public, I want to personally present to the public as close as we can to what we want without making any changes, just like we do with our budget. We want to present at the, we don't present a budget for the public at a public hearing October 3rd. You do it a little bit later after we've worked on it. We need to work on it and work through all the kinks in regards, what I am most concerned with is the election law. I do not want to have a map out there that later we are forced to have an election district with 5 people in it. And I just think it's that important. And I don't know if they have that amount of time. And you know, if they do, and they can do it. But to say that we're going to move this forward tonight, that resolution with those boundaries, knowing that we have problems now just from what they told us. We know it. Why would you move that forward? A public hearing is one thing, but wouldn't you have substance with a public hearing? We know already that's got to be changed. So we know going in, yeah, we're going to give you something to look at, public, but we know we're going to change that. We already know it. It doesn't make sense to me. Give them as close to what we can think is the end product.
Doug? Tom? Doug?
Yes.
Supervisor Rico?
Okay, very quickly. Tom, you talking about the one that's on the resolution? You're talking to Dusty, you're talking to Doug and Vince.
Well, I think the
Is that the
resolution
one
includes
with
all the
those-
changes.
With those changes?
Yeah, the resolution includes that.
All right, that's the one you're talking about. That everybody agrees to. Not the original map.
No.
The map with the
changes that we went over
changes
tonight.
with the 28. Okay. The other thing I just want to, when it comes to that, isn't it, if we do vote this in, can we just put in there with an amendment to be reviewed by the Board of Elections for voting purposes? Something to that nature where we know that they're going to get involved?
This is just a public hearing.
Oh, all right. Then, okay,
Once the
done.
public hearing's done, I'm sure that,
Okay, done. That
and
can be
in
done
between
anyway.
now and then, I'm sure it can be tweaked.
Okay, good enough.
Supervisor Coddington?
Could I ask maybe Cheryl a question? Maybe she'd be, I know I'm running Robin all the time. What is the timeline on a public hearing? The publication, the number of days required and all that? Do you know
We
that?
need 10 days to advertise.
10 days, okay.
Working days.
10 working days, so.
So that's what I thought.
Anybody else?
Without
Okay.
question.
Okay, I gotta call the question. Roll call.
Do I need a second on it?
Which one?
Oh, yeah.
Call the question. Chair, we're voting on calling the question?
No, we're voting on a resolution.
No, we're voting on call to question.
Oh, all right.
Is that necessary?
I withdraw.
Okay, then we can have, now we can vote.
Let's put the resolution on.
Roll call on the resolution.
Which is just call a public hearing.
Call a public hearing.
All right, well, Supervisor Stark sponsored, but he's not here. So, Supervisor Chaira.
Aye.
Supervisor Demeza.
And that is with the changes that came along with tonight's meeting.
Supervisor Allen.
Aye.
Supervisor Sullivan.
Aye.
Supervisor Strebe. Supervisor Coddington.
Aye.
Supervisor Quackenbush.
No.
Supervisor Sweet.
No.
Chairman Thayer.
No.
Supervisor Stagliano.
Yes.
Supervisor Grieco.
Yes.
Pass.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Supervisor Sweet, Supervisor Coddington, all in favor? Aye. All adjourned.
Oh, do you want these stuff?
I'll take them out. You can put them in the hallway or something.
Can we put them in the hallway?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Take them home with me.
Sure. You can have it. It's just like, you like collecting that.
You didn't move to the house.
Yeah, good.
I gave you a copy, didn't I?
What are you doing? FEMA sent me.
Yeah, I need to get back with you. I've had some other things.
They sent me
I've had additional discussions. There's been a lot going on.
This does not seem like bad money. I'm not going to say.
I had another. Yeah. He may have to go back in. Where's this coat, Doug? Doug, where's this coat? I think that was over around the corner there. I got an email from FEMA, and they're talking about that.
I don't know if they're doing.
You can do one or two things. They are doing your resolution. The same language.
They're trying to do something, but you can't tell what they're doing.
Okay. Will you give me,
I would recommend that. We kind of got away from, rather than amending it with the resolutions.
Okay, then there's a city.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah, you wanted it like a overlay. I can do that.
whatever you get.
A little more time, I should.
Yeah, no problem. And then when you get it, let me know.
I would do a resolution just like the other. With the 20-page document, if you want to have it attached like you did before.
So you guys all be jockeying to get to the,
Rescind the resolution, 206. Yeah.
You gotta work at it.
I think you gotta work too hard.
Yeah, might as well. The wording wouldn't have to be any different. It's just that we have a 20-page document instead of the 19-page.
Well, as soon as they back up, move out. As soon as Sully's ready, we get his attention. As soon as you're ready, just get it. cleanup.
That's what he would have
Eight was the best.
Why don't we just talk to you?
He calls me before he calls you.
Call him.
I think this is yours too, though.
You want that?
Doesn't want to steal it.
No?
That's because the two of you are
We're taking inventory at the end of the year.
So, I don't know where to go from here.
He's mad at me over something going back 150 years.
He likes me because I listen to this.
Well, he is right about the generator up there. They use parts.
No, he's just saying that incorporates, that
Yeah, I'm waiting
the
for it to go on
language
again.
are incorporated into the language, which they are.
We were the only ones out the last time. The rest of the city was not.
Okay, I'll call the final personnel meeting of the year. Thank you. There won't be another one. To order here. Anyone got anything they want to bring up as far as personnel goes? If not, we'll make it quick then. All right, you have there was a resolution that is attached that was signed agreement for excess workers' compensation coverage. The information never came in. The firm that is providing the excess workers' compensation is waiting for information, stop loss from, or loss runs from others, and so we're going to have to continue under the existing stop loss contract and bring this back up in January. Okay, anyone have a problem? Someone will have to bring it back up. January. So should we, there's no sense in table it.
No, it isn't
And then there's no
sponsored
sponsor.
anyway. No, you've explained it, so
Huh?
just.
It's a short meeting.
No, I got one more thing. Back, this is an add-on. Back in August, or October, we passed a resolution to enter into an agreement with Matrix for prescription drugs. At the time that we passed it, we did not know that there was a page 20 to this agreement. There happened to be an amendment to, they call it Amendment A, that was an amendment to the contract that was done by the Health Insurance Trust, and it was signed by Supervisor DeMeza. In order to make that resolution clean, and since it's coming into the county now, and no longer in the name of the trust, and since the original resolution authorized the chairman to enter into that agreement, what you have in front of you is page 20 of 20. And what it reads is it's an Amendment A, and at some point, in which we want to continue, at some point, the county employees and retirees were required to purchase prescription drugs through Canada RX. To do that, they had to go through Matrix as our pharmacy manager. And so there was a provision where Matrix got a certain percentage, 3% of the average monthly client-specific network billing. All right, so to continue this, I'd like to have a resolution that would bring back up, it'll rescind Resolution 206 of 2012, which was in October, and have the new resolution come back up with page 20 in it. If there's no issues with that, then we'll have a resolution drawn and John and brought in front of the full board.
Do you have a sponsor?
All right, I'll sponsor, okay, Butch will sponsor, and Bill will second. Okay? So we clear? We're gonna rescind 206 and pass a new one. Okay? All in favor?
Discussion?
Yes.
The only thing you have to change is the last page.
Yes.
Legally, Doug. For instance, if we're saying we're rescinding 206 and that thing fails this time, then there is no agreement. If we just say that we're amending 206, we still have the agreement we passed, 206, minus the 20th page.
Yes, but which would at least arguably not be acceptable to the vendor.
Correct.
Well,
the city is also passing it, so.
What?
With page 20.
just throwing it out there. I don't know if you want to do away with the whole.
I just explained what the business, because it had it as attached, so
Right.
it's exact. The resolution 206, and this is done sometimes, not all that frequently. The language in 206 specifies the agreement, the contract as attached to the resolution. So it's exactly that 19 pages. So when I reviewed it, when the contract that came in was different because it has an additional page and different additional provisions on it, it's not exact. So it wasn't authorized by resolution 206. You could amend it, but you're really back to the same problem that you already set forth, Tom, because if the resolution to amend it and add the amendment A fails, you're still not going to have a contract because it won't. The 19-page one won't be acceptable to the vendor, Matrix.
He hasn't signed that yet.
He has signed this one.
He signed the revised one with the 20 pages.
But not the earlier one, with the 19.
Right.
Right. I'm just.
And both this resolution with the amendment and the city's resolution with the amendment are both attachments to, will be attachments to the trust agreement with Matrix. Okay, so move it. All in favor?
Yep.
All right?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Next point.
It's going to be an other.
We have
On
all-
the agenda, there's always other.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Okay, I think at the beginning of the year, whatever, I had asked something about the ethics law. We do have an ethics law in the county. And I would ask Mr. Linden if he could possibly put something together on number 3, which has to do with gifts, and expound exactly what that means, because it says here, solicit directly or indirectly any gifts received, accept any gift having the value of $75. Now, you know, what does that actually mean to the board? Does it mean $75 a day, $70 a week, $75? What does it actually include? I think it'd be necessary possibly to explain that, because it is part of your ethics law, number 3 and number 4, and to go on like that. And I think it's something that really should be stated here, what it actually encounters.
If I may, Supervisor Chiara had requested some information regarding this a while back, and I think that it was provided to him by me through Cheryl electronically, because the request came to me from Cheryl. I'm quite sure.
It's possible. What I'm asking for is it to be given to everybody, to make a commentary at a meeting, just to make sure so the whole county of Montgomery can hear it also.
No, and but I was going to lead up to part of what I provided in that communication, and that's that the provision that you're setting forth, the language in it is essentially backwards. A literal reading of it provides that the $75 you're referring to, a reading of it, because of the way it was amended when the ethics law as revised was adopted, because of the language of the amendment, it actually provides for a prohibition of a gift under $75, not over. And I invite anyone to read the provision, and that's what it says. I'd be more than happy to discuss it in more detail. I don't have my ethics.
I know, I was just saying, if sometimes you could explain it so even the public would be aware, because I don't know how many times they're familiar with the ethics law.
So right now, we can have a gift over $75.
I think the spirit of it and the intent of it was fairly clear, but the language itself is, it's similar to what I'd call a double negative that's created by it, and it actually, a literal reading of it would put the prohibition in the 0 to 75 rather than the over 75.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it also explains
if you want
what it
to
is.
schedule a discussion of that for some point in the
Possibly,
future,
possibly at a meeting, so it could be
I'd
out
be
there.
happy to discuss it.
Okay. Arrange that with the chair. Yes, Bill.
Chair, just before you call the meeting, the matrix agreement, Amendment A was left out by them when they provided you with the new contract?
Yes.
How did they explain that away?
Because it had already been agreed to, they thought that it wasn't necessary. It was a prior agreement because it was already signed. And then they apologized in an email. He apologized to me for sending something that was inconsistent.
Incomplete and inconsistent.
Yeah.
If I may, it was signed by the trust, with the county taking it over. After the county took over the contract, the county would not be bound by the language of that amendment if the county didn't execute the amendment as well. The 19-page document that you all saw and was attached to Resolution 206 in October was effectively a page short. The one it was replacing was a 20-page document, and if you do what's been proposed here tonight, the new one will be as well. That was missing.
But is not Schedule A mentioned in any of those 19 pages?
No, it was an attachment to it.
Yeah.
You know, actually it was actually written up as page 1 of 1.
So out of the 20 pages, this is the only one of importance?
No. Well, additional importance. The primary clause in the original 19 pages that we were looking for was the elimination of 4% commissions on all the drugs. In the 19 pages, there is no commissions. All right? That one was a separate agreement because we were requiring our employees and retirees to buy the Canada RX, and that's why that amendment got attached to it. And also the city version.
Thank you.
Okay? Anything else? Merry Christmas. It's been a very nice year with you folks. Okay? Motion to adjourn? Brian? Bill? All in favor? No, we have personnel.
Merry Christmas, all.
What?
Finance Committee to order, please. Before we get into the resolutions, under the discussion, number 1, I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but our single audit from Toski has not been completed. We're starting to bump up against problems with that, in that our federal grants through Homeland Security and through DOT are starting to be stopped because our single audit is not complete. Our single audit is not complete because we have been trying to, or I shouldn't say we, the trust has been trying to audit the books starting in 2007. As of yet, they have been unable to get out of 2007. So in order for the trust to be audited up to date, they need to get out of 2007 and then progress into 8, 9, 10, and 11. Toski is aware of this. We have been working with Toski, trying to see if they can give us a single audit without the trust being audited. They're working with that. The treasurer has been in communication with Toski, trying to get our single audit completed with an addendum that the health insurance trust will be audited completely, hopefully very soon. But that, just to bring you up to speed, that's where we're at. That's why you may be hearing some noise about grant funding being stopped. That's why. So with that, any questions from the floor concerning that before we go down to the resolutions? Okay. First up is a resolution authorizing chairman to sign agreements for services approved for 2013 social services operating budget, sponsored by Thayer. We need a second. Tom Quackenbush. Discussion? Wishes of the committee? Move it. I'm sorry, discussion?
No, abstain.
Oh, you're abstaining, okay. Next up's a resolution awarding implementation and funding of Schoharie Creek debris assessment and cleanup ESD project. Need a sponsor and a second. Brooch and Brian Sweet. Well, go ahead and.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to apologize to you and the committee for taking up your time with this resolution, as it's unnecessary. There was a resolution I was unaware of in the past in either June or July of this year that took care of this. So it renders this resolution unnecessary.
Would you like to pull your sponsorship, Butch?
Go ahead.
All right.
I'll pick it up.
All right. Next up is a resolution approving the issuance of certain bonds by Montgomery County Industrial Development Agency to finance a certain manufacturing facility project for MH Stallman Company, sponsored by Thayer. We need a second. Tom Quackenbush. Discussion? Wishes of the committee?
Move it.
Move it. Opposed? Hearing none. Next up, resolution amending 2012 operating budget carryover grant funds, public health, sponsored by Thayer. We have a second, do we? Supervisor Sweet. Discussion? Wishes of the committee?
Move it.
Opposed? It's moved. Resolution approving abstract of audited claims, sponsored by Thayer, seconded by Chiara. Discussion? Wishes of the committee? Move it. Move it. Opposed? Resolution authorizing chairman of the board to execute an agreement with Westlaw, sponsored by Thayer. We need a second. Supervisor Sweet. Sheriff Amato, if you say you have a change that you'd like to make to this.
Yeah. Sorry for the late change, but I just got another contract in. I had Doug review it. Doug said the other contract is good also. There's a couple of changes. One, of course, is the money. If we went with Westlaw, it would cost us about $7,400 the first year for the program. That's through Westlaw. With this other company, LexisNexis, it'd be $4,200. So there's even more of a savings there. Currently, we're spending $10,000 a year in books. Okay. The other change in the other company is that it is not through the internet. It is through an external hard drive that they will mail to us every 4 months that we just plug into the computer and it'll have all the updates. So we won't have to go online, which is a security risk, which I didn't like. And, they're paying for the mailing. So, and it saves us money. So I'd rather go with the second company, which is LexisNexis. What's also nice about LexisNexis is that we'd be able to bolt the computer down to a computer cart that we have and move it around to the pods to give them even more access to the law library. So if we have an inmate that we really don't want in the law library because there might be problems, we can wheel the cart into the pods, put it in a little room that we have there, and they can stay right in the pod. You don't have to worry about moving them through the building or anything.
Okay, Tom?
I don't have the resolution in front of me. What are the books for?
For your base.
DOC.
Commissioner of Corrections requires us to have a law library for the inmates.
It's mandated that we have.
Yes.
So can you give us a corrected resolution?
Yes, I will get it to the clerk's office.
And that would...
Wednesday, Thursday.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Is there like we have to buy these once a year, or we have to have a certain amount in the jail for them? They got to be updated for them? Is that why we have to, that's why we have to do it, or we're just...
Commissioner of Corrections requires us to have a certain amount of books in the law library. It's a pretty wide selection. And we have to keep those books updated. And so every year we have to pay to keep those books updated to the tune of $10,000. And it's very cumbersome because you have to put the inserts in all the time. And the inmates sometimes destroy the books. You know,
Is it, I know we can use their money sometimes for other things, right? Can't use their money for this?
Only if it's above and beyond what the commission requires them to have.
I'm good.
Anybody else? Brian, you're okay with making those changes?
I will get it to have it put the new numbers in.
Wishes of the committee? Move it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Opposed?
Change.
Yeah. Okay, if I can get through all this Westlaw stuff, I don't need anymore. Next up is a resolution amending 2013 tentative budget, sponsored by Sweet. We need a second. I'll second it. Okay, Supervisor Chiara. We'll say that Supervisor Chiara wants to spend the money instead of Supervisor Thayer.
I knew you were doing it for that.
Pardon? This is a resolution that tacks on an additional $56,000 to the tentative budget for 2 patrol cars. It doesn't state 2 patrol cars, but I believe it was for 2 patrol cars, correct, Sheriff?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
Cars are got, we're replacing junk into, or really?
I would.
Go.
Now, right now, we're down 3 patrol cars that are normal fleet. You know, we've had accidents, so they just can't fix it anymore. Our average mileage on our cars that we currently have in use of patrol are probably about 140,000 miles on each car, but we have a few of them. This is mileage of November of this year, so it has another month almost to put mileage on. Our max is 260, but probably has about 280 to 275 on it right now for one car. And we have one that's 232, 192, 247. So they're really getting up to the mileage. They've been fantastic. DPW has done the best they can to keep these cars on the road. I got a car today that we're going to put the transmission in that has about 175,000 miles on it. The transmission is going to cost me $1,800. You think the car's worth it since 2006. So, you know, we're putting money into these cars and they're starting to drop like flies. It's just going to be a 3rd year we haven't gotten any vehicle fixed. So I'm asking the board if they would, you know, look into possibly provide us with a couple more vehicles. The cost factor that's quoted here is for the cars, shipping and handling, striping. We have to put computers in these vehicles now, radios, you know, we have to outfit it. So it adds up fast.
Can you outfit those with what is in the other cars, like stripping them?
My plan was to keep what we have on the road until they die. Because with 3 cars down now as it is, and we put 3 or 4 cars down in DPW and they sit there for a week because they need parts or something they can't do right away, that cuts into the rest of the car.
But when you do junk a car, you strip it and use the, whatever you have.
Yeah. Yeah, they go out with just the body shell and they're done. to the scrapyard.
And those miles don't include idle time.
Correct,
on the
yeah.
motor. I mean, it adds a considerable amount of
Wear and tear on
wear and tear on the motor.
You done, Tom?
Sorry.
Sean, I believe that we still had a lot of room with the 2% cap, correct? This won't put us over the 2% cap?
No.
Yeah, I thought it would.
You know, and I don't know if we could figure it into next year, into the money we bring into the jail, revenue, somehow to offset it. That's a problem.
Well, I think that he bumped it pretty good. You're projected for what, 800,000?
Yes.
Yeah. So, depends on how nice you are to the marshals.
We had 19 today.
Do you bring the marshals home for dinner?
It's amendments day 50 cents.
Further discussion?
Well, so the thing is, it's the intention of raising the taxes another 0.25%, 20%, 0.2, just 20. You don't want to do it. Not the hell.
The budget isn't
I
passed
just,
yet.
you know why? Because when I brought this up before, somebody says, well, all of these resolutions have to be balanced. We have to have resolutions that appropriate fund balance. I was told. He left. I was told. But we have one now that doesn't have any appropriate fund balance. So you want to. I only say that because the next resolution will also increase taxes a little bit. The next resolution that's behind this one.
You have, you know, if there's an issue, we try to do the best we can to increase our revenue for jail.
No, just so it's understood, it's, if you're not going to appropriate fund balance to pay it, then we increase taxes marginally in order to pay for that. The next resolution that comes up, which is like a corrective resolution, will also increase his tax another 30,000. All right, so. Thank you, Chair.
I've got Tom Quackenbush, then Larry
I
Piper.
think to Dominic's point, even if the sheriff comes up with it through revenue from inmates or whatever, right now, you're doing it to the budget and you're increasing the budget and what you're charging the taxpayer. So even if you come up with it later in the year, you've already charged the taxpayer. That's why I said, you really think that revenue is coming in, increase the revenue line.
Budget hasn't been passed.
No, I understand that, but...
We amended the 18th.
No, I understand that, but you're still going to raise up the amount that you're raising in taxes by 0.25%.
Right tonight. But you can amend the budget.
To do what?
Possibly to change something in the budget that wasn't changed.
Oh, I
To
understand.
reduce.
No, I understand. No, that's the point I'm making.
There will be things next week in order to lower.
If you don't do anything, it's up by a quarter. That's why I'm saying.
It's like we have $255,000 budgeted for unemployment
Gentlemen,
insurance.
one at a time, please.
No, he's.
I believe Tom has the floor.
No, Tom's got the floor.
No, I was just agreeing with what Dominic's saying, and if there's a way to, if you really think that revenue is going to come up, let's put it in there as revenue at the next meeting or whatever. Or reduce the unemployment line if we're not using it to.
There's $255,000 in an unemployment line when we're not laying anybody off. So it wouldn't make any sense to keep $255,000, which is almost 1% in a tax increase. You know, and so we'll bring these things up next week in order to bring yours down.
I have Larry next.
Yeah, this may be a stupid question, but have you ever done any kind of study like these? You say you got these cars with 150,000 miles on. What repairs cost for them like for a year? You know,
Well, now, it's just starting to kick in the last couple of years. These cars have been fantastic as far as maintenance goes. We had cars, Fords prior to this, and we were putting intake manifolds in and transmissions in at 50,000 miles. These cars, we've done now we're doing major work as far as transmissions go. We've done some motor work, but not as much as the Fords. These cars have actually cost us a lot less in maintenance over the years that we've had them, and DPW's maintenance program has helped out a lot. We're keeping these cars running as long as they have. So this one car I'm talking about here is $1,800 just right off the bat, transmission, let alone any brakes that we've had done to it. They might be putting a couple of thousand in that car this year each.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? Wishes of the committee? Move it. Opposed? Abstained? It's moved. Next up, resolution amending 2013 tentative budget, sponsored by Supervisor Rachkowski. We need a second. Supervisor Sweet. I believe this is the $50,000 correction that needed to be made 2 weeks ago or more. Supervisor Stagliano, you have something to say?
Yeah, what this is that on a resolution to amend by Supervisor Chiara, he increased the revenue line, and then there was an offset on an expenditure line. He could have done one of two things. He could have either, if you were going to put the revenues in, you put the expenditures in, which is this one, or don't put the expenditures in and take the revenue out. You'd be better off taking the revenue out, because your revenue, you increase it by 29,000, and the expense is going up by 50, because that's the prorated share of the cost of the
Then
program.
why don't we amend it to do that? Because I didn't see the other section when she.
Right, you
done
didn't look
it.
at, you didn't see
I
the
didn't see
comments.
it. I didn't have it in my possession.
Yeah.
I just assumed do that.
So on the floor, we should probably talk to Greg, that there's one of two choices. I had this conversation with Kim, remember the other day, in the office. Do one of two things. Either put the expense in or take the revenue out. The budget would be better off taking the revenue out.
I would concur.
Well, unfortunately.
Then you save yourself $30,000.
Rachkowski is not here, so.
Yeah.
We can amend it.
Wishes of the committee? Move it. Opposed? Yeah, it can be amended.
Yeah.
You can amend it in committee if you so choose.
You so choose?
Yeah, I would choose to amend it to remove the revenue if we knew what the revenue line was.
Would you have that information with you, Sean?
Yeah. The line's in that resolution, the revenue line. If the A16-3-3277-00, you go from the, you would reduce it by the 59.5% of the 50,000.
There was 29,000 and change, I think that was the amount.
Yeah, we can leave that blank until the meeting. Or tomorrow, yeah. Do we have a second on that amendment? Supervisor Chiara? Discussion on the amendment?
29,750.
29,750.
I don't have the change from the two, right?
Yeah.
But you would reduce the revenue by the 29,750.
Yeah, rather than raise the expense by 50,000.
All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, on the resolution as amended, wishes of the committee. Move it? Move it. Opposed? Resolution as amended is moved.
Sean, can you get me that information in the morning, please?
Next up is a resolution adopting Montgomery County 2013 budget, sponsored by Thayer. We need a second. Guess we're not going to approve the budget. Supervisor Sweet. Discussion? Wishes of committee?
Well, that's a difficult one.
I'm not saying I'm voting for it, but I'll vote to move to the full board.
There you go. Opposed? And then we have an add-on. So we've got two add-ons, I'm sorry. First add-on is a resolution. I have two copies, sorry. One add-on. All right. It's a resolution amending the 2012 operating budget, medical fees, sponsored by Thayer. We need a second.
Medical fees for
Coroner. And Supervisor Allen. Discussion?
Do I have, does everybody have it?
I've got an extra copy.
How much was it? How much was that?
$10,000
A tough year.
from appropriated fund balance.
It's been a tough year.
Yeah, people are dying. Further discussion? Wishes of the committee? Opposed? It is moved.
Abstain, yes, abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Last year we voted on that, somebody thought we voted on giving my wife a raise. Didn't do it, get a call about it.
Anything on our other?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Yeah.
We are adjourned.